Chosen one. The name you have been searching for is closer than you think. A secret has been protected from you for longer than you realize. Someone laughed when your heart spoke their name. But heaven never laughed. And before this message ends, a truth hidden behind years of silence will begin to reveal itself. Listen carefully, because this message is not arriving by accident. There are moments in life when everything appears confusing, when every door seems closed, when every answer feels delayed, and when the person you believed was meant for you seems farther away than ever before. Yet what many fail to understand is that divine timing often looks like rejection before it reveals itself as protection. You have spent nights wondering whether you missed your chance, whether the person you loved has forgotten you, whether the future you imagined was nothing more than a dream. But while you were questioning everything, heaven was moving pieces that you could not see. Conversations were taking place behind closed doors. Hearts were being challenged. Secrets were being exposed. And the very person connected to your destiny was being led through lessons they could not avoid. There was a reason certain relationships collapsed. There was a reason certain people disappeared without explanation. There was a reason doors closed just when you thought they were opening. The pain was real, but the purpose behind it was greater than the pain itself. Many around you only saw disappointment, but heaven saw preparation. They saw a future that required both souls to grow before they could stand together. They saw wounds that needed healing. They saw pride that needed breaking. They saw fears that needed confronting. And because of that, the journey became longer than you expected. Don't skip. What you do not know is that there were moments when this person thought they had moved on completely. They convinced themselves that another path would make life easier. They told themselves that forgetting you would remove the questions they carried inside. They smiled in public. They spoke confidently about new plans. They acted as though your chapter had already ended. But every attempt to erase what was written by destiny only created more confusion inside their heart. The harder they tried to silence certain feelings, the louder those feelings became. The more they ran from certain memories, the stronger those memories returned. Meanwhile, people around them began noticing strange things. Certain names would unexpectedly appear in conversations. Certain memories would return without warning. Certain dreams would leave them awake in the middle of the night wondering why they still felt connected to a story they believed was over. They could not explain it. They could not control it. And they certainly could not ignore it forever. The truth is that destiny leaves fingerprints everywhere. It appears in coincidences that happen too often to be coincidence. It appears in moments that logic cannot fully explain. It appears in the quiet voice that refuses to disappear no matter how loudly the world speaks against it. And this person has been encountering those fingerprints more often than anyone realizes. Don't skip. There was a gathering, a conversation, a moment when someone asked a question that seemed ordinary on the surface. Nobody expected it to change anything. Nobody expected silence to suddenly fill the room. Nobody expected hidden emotions to rise so quickly. Yet that simple question forced this person to confront something they had been avoiding for a very long time. For a few seconds, every answer they had prepared disappeared. Every excuse they had rehearsed vanished. Every wall they had built began to crack. Because deep inside, they knew a truth they had been trying not to acknowledge. The name that remained inside their heart was not the name everyone expected. The future they secretly imagined was not the future they had been describing to others. And the person connected to their deepest emotions was not the person standing closest to them at that moment. That realization shook them more than they admitted. For years they had listened to outside opinions. They had listened to family expectations. They had listened to friends who believed they knew what was best. They had listened to fear. They had listened to doubt. But they had not listened carefully enough to what their own heart was revealing. And when that realization finally arrived, it became impossible to ignore. Don't skip. There are people who think destiny can be replaced. They believe they can force connections that were never meant to last. They believe they can manufacture feelings that are not truly there. They believe they can silence divine guidance through stubborn decisions. But eventually truth rises to the surface. Eventually reality demands attention. Eventually the heart becomes tired of pretending. That is exactly what has been happening. The person connected to your story has been reaching a crossroads. One road offers comfort. The other offers truth. One road pleases everyone else. The other requires courage. One road looks easier today. The other creates peace tomorrow. And although the decision has not been fully completed, the direction is becoming clearer than ever before. Because heaven has a way of revealing what belongs together. It happens through unexpected conversations. It happens through shocking discoveries. It happens through moments that appear ordinary but change everything. And it happens through names that refuse to disappear. The name nobody expected continues to survive every attempt to erase it. The memory nobody expected continues to return. The connection nobody expected continues to grow stronger beneath the surface. And whether others understand it or not, whether others approve of it or not, what has been written by divine purpose cannot be permanently hidden. Don't skip. Right now, pieces are moving that you cannot yet see. Certain truths are approaching the light. Certain misunderstandings are losing their power. Certain fears are preparing to fall away. What feels delayed is not denied. What feels silent is not forgotten. What feels impossible is not beyond the reach of heaven. The story is still unfolding. The revelation is still growing. And the name that nobody expected is closer to being spoken aloud than it has ever been before. Don't skip. The moment that question was asked, something changed forever inside this person. Even after the conversation ended and everyone returned to their normal lives, the answer continued echoing in their mind. They tried distracting themselves. They buried themselves in work, responsibilities, and daily routines. They smiled when people expected them to smile. They laughed when others joked around them. Yet beneath every ordinary moment was an extraordinary realization they could no longer escape. The truth had finally found a crack in the walls they had spent years building around their heart, and once truth enters, it becomes impossible to force it back into silence. What nobody knew was that this person had been carrying your memory much longer than they admitted. They had simply become skilled at hiding it. Every time someone mentioned moving on, they nodded. Every time someone suggested another future, they listened. Every time life presented a different path, they attempted to walk it. But each road eventually led them back to the same question. Why was your name still surviving when so many others had disappeared? Why did certain memories remain untouched while countless others faded away? Why did every attempt to replace the connection leave them feeling emptier instead of fulfilled? The answers frightened them because the answers demanded honesty. And honesty changes everything. For a long time, they blamed circumstances. They blamed timing. They blamed distance. They blamed misunderstandings. They blamed everyone except themselves. It was easier that way. It allowed them to avoid looking directly at the truth. But recently, something has been forcing deeper reflection. They have started recognizing moments where fear made decisions that love should have made. They have started recognizing conversations where silence created damage that honesty could have prevented. They have started recognizing opportunities they walked away from simply because uncertainty felt safer than vulnerability. These realizations have not been comfortable. In fact, there have been nights when they sat alone replaying old memories and wondering how different life might look if they had chosen courage instead of fear. There have been moments when they wished they could return to certain crossroads and make different decisions. There have been moments when regret arrived unexpectedly and refused to leave. Don't skip. Meanwhile, heaven continued working behind the scenes. People often imagine divine guidance as dramatic signs falling from the sky, but more often it arrives through small events that gradually become impossible to ignore. A random conversation. An unexpected encounter. A dream that feels unusually real. A memory that suddenly returns after years of silence. A song that appears at the exact moment it is needed. A name that continues surfacing no matter how hard someone tries to avoid it. That is exactly what has been happening. This person has experienced too many moments to dismiss as coincidence. Too many reminders. Too many unexpected connections. Too many situations that somehow point back toward unfinished emotions. Every time they attempt to convince themselves that the story is over, something happens that forces them to reconsider. At first they resisted. Then they questioned. Now they are beginning to understand. And understanding is leading them toward a truth they can no longer deny. The truth is not about obsession. It is not about fantasy. It is not about clinging to the past. It is about recognizing what remains standing after everything else fell apart. Because real connections survive storms that destroy weaker ones. Real connections survive silence. Real connections survive distance. Real connections survive confusion. And what has survived all those things deserves attention. Don't skip. There is another detail nobody expected. While this person has been confronting their emotions, certain people around them have started noticing the change. Family members who once believed they understood everything are beginning to sense that something remains unresolved. Friends who assumed the story was finished are noticing hesitation whenever certain subjects arise. Questions that once received immediate answers now receive silence. Conversations that once felt simple now feel complicated. Some people are confused. Some people are curious. And some people are starting to realize that the future may not unfold the way they expected. Because the heart reveals itself eventually. No matter how carefully someone hides their emotions, the truth always finds a way to appear. It appears in facial expressions. It appears in hesitation. It appears in unexpected reactions. It appears in moments when someone's guard drops for only a second. And recently, there have been many of those moments. Moments where your memory surfaced unexpectedly. Moments where your name carried more weight than it should have. Moments where emotions became impossible to disguise. Moments that revealed a truth nobody wanted to acknowledge. The connection was never as finished as it appeared. Don't skip. What makes this story even more remarkable is that heaven often waits until both people reach a certain level of growth before revealing what comes next. There were lessons you needed to learn. There were lessons this person needed to learn. There were wounds that required healing on both sides. Had everything happened earlier, neither of you would have been ready for what was coming. That delay felt painful. It felt unfair. It felt confusing. But delays are not always punishments. Sometimes they are preparation. Sometimes they are protection. Sometimes they are the difference between something temporary and something lasting. And now the season of preparation is beginning to shift. Doors that remained closed are slowly moving. Questions that remained unanswered are slowly receiving clarity. Emotions that remained hidden are slowly reaching the surface. The process is not complete yet. But it has begun. And once certain truths begin revealing themselves, they cannot be hidden again. Don't skip. The most surprising part is still ahead. Because there is a conversation approaching that neither side fully expects. A moment where masks become difficult to maintain. A moment where honesty becomes more powerful than fear. A moment where assumptions are challenged by reality. A moment where emotions long buried finally demand recognition. When that moment arrives, many people will be shocked. Not because the connection never existed, but because they underestimated its strength. They underestimated its endurance. They underestimated how deeply destiny can root itself within two lives. And they underestimated the power of a name that heaven never stopped protecting. Right now, even if you cannot see every detail, movement is taking place. The story is advancing. The silence is carrying meaning. The delays are creating purpose. And the person connected to this journey is moving closer and closer to a realization that will alter everything they thought they knew. Because the name nobody expected was never disappearing. The connection nobody expected was never ending. And the truth nobody expected is preparing to stand in the light where it can no longer be denied. Don't skip. The final truth is this: what is meant for you does not lose its way forever. It may wander through confusion, fear, pride, and delay, but destiny always remembers the path it was given. This person has reached a place where pretending no longer brings peace. The answers they searched for in other places never fully satisfied their heart. The future they tried to build without truth never felt complete. And now they understand something they once refused to accept. The name that remained through every season was there for a reason. The memory that survived every distraction was there for a reason. The connection that refused to disappear was there for a reason. Soon, a truth hidden for years will become impossible to ignore. A conversation will reveal more than anyone expects. A silence will finally be broken. A door that seemed permanently closed will begin to open. And those who believed the story was over will realize it was only waiting for the right moment. The journey was never about losing each other. It was about becoming the people you needed to be before destiny could reveal its full plan. Trust what heaven has been preparing behind the scenes. Trust what has survived every test. Trust what continues to return no matter how far it seems to go. Because some names are written only in memory. But some names are written in destiny. And when heaven finally reveals the person you are meant to marry, the greatest surprise will not be the name itself. The greatest surprise will be realizing that your heart knew the answer long before anyone else did. The waiting season is ending. The hidden truth is rising. And the next chapter begins now.